Chapter 19. In or about late 1994, Michael Castillo, a well-known Familiano who at one time functioned under authority of Ralph Old Man Rafa Rubio, almost got left out without a link to the mob when Rubio, along with all those under his authority, were ousted. Castillo, who had been in the mob for years, was left in a bad position. However, he knew it was his duty to oversee all NF activities in Salinas until he received new instructions, orders, or a reassignment. Castillo continued to be in charge of Salinas as acting commander until he was reincarcerated. His appointment as overall in charge of Salinas was then reconfirmed. Sometime in early 1995, Castillo ended up in the Monterey County Jail on a parole violation for driving under the influence of alcohol. He reported his incarceration to Robert Brown Bob Viramontes, who reassigned Castillo to function under the authority of Arthur Big Smiley Ramirez. Not long after being appointed to function under Ramirez's guidance, Castillo was quickly authorized to establish organizational territory, recruit, and build a regimental stronghold in Salinas. Castillo was also authorized as the overall authority in charge of the Monterey County Jail, responsible for establishing a functioning household and making sure all NF members and associates were operating according to established procedures and recruiting. While in Monterey County Jail, Castillo recruited Rico Smiley Garcia, Vincent Chente Garcia, Salvador Littleman Castaneda, and Isidro Chilo Huerta, all from Salinas, to function under Castillo when they were released. Not much was happening as Castillo established a functioning household within the Monterey County Jail. Everyone there was basically waiting to go to court or to be transferred or released. However, an incident that almost took place would definitely be remembered at a later date. It occurred a few months into Castillo's stay in the Monterey County Jail. A Nuestra Raza renegade named Pablo Castaneda, Little Man's younger brother, showed up. He had been returned from prison to jail to go to court on a child custody case. Since he was from the Salinas area, he knew all of the homeboys in the county jail. Over the years, Pablo was accused of being a double agent and for setting up norteños to be hit by sureños, a treasonous act. Upon seeing him brought to the jail, everybody that was somebody immediately suspected he was no good. To make matters worse, Pablo had a zipper, razor blade slash mark, also known as a puto mark, running across the side of his face, which confirmed that Pablo was either an informant, dropout, or a traitor. After going through standard booking procedures, Pablo was housed in the affiliated section of the jail. Rico Smiley Garcia, the NF second in command, immediately felt that Pablo's presence shouldn't be welcome. A junta meeting was held and it was decided that Pablo had caused too much damage and that he should be hit and or removed from the affiliated section. The task was given to Huerta with instructions to make a one-hitter quitter, plastic shank, and hit Pablo in the neck as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Huerta quickly prepared the weapon. However, Salvador Littleman Castaneda, who was still an active member, got word that his younger brother was going to be stabbed. Salvador took his case to Castillo and pleaded for his brother to be given a pass. Castillo decided to veto Rico's decision and ordered Huerta to abort the mission and to give Pablo a pass. Not everyone agreed with Castillo's actions, but they would be respected as long as there was a thorough investigation. Salvador had raised his hand for Pablo, and Salvador would be held accountable for his brother's actions should Pablo eventually be found guilty. Everyone agreed, and Pablo was allowed to stay. Not long after the Castaneda incident, Castillo completed his county jail time and was picked up by the California Department of Corrections, Grey Goose, transportation bus, and returned to prison. Note, in order to continue the ongoing implementation of a regimental stronghold in the Monterey County. During this time, it was decided that Cesar Lobo Ramirez, an NF member, would assume Castillo's street duty while Castillo was in custody. Ramirez initiated the first few phases of putting together a Nuestra Familia foundation. A few months later, sometime in or about February 1995, Castillo was released from prison. He was returned to Salinas and began picking up where he left off. Castillo contacted Ramirez and regained his authority. He organized a mandatory regimental meeting for everyone under his guidance to attend. It was held at the home of Sofia Rocha, Mateo's sister, and an NF associate. The purpose of the meeting was for Castillo to consult, prepare, and assign his manpower to their respective positions. Rico Smiley Garcia was assigned to function as Castillo's right-hand man, reserve commander, and/or second-in-command. If anything happened to Castillo, Garcia would automatically assume his position. Some of Garcia's other responsibilities were to oversee all day-to-day activities, issues, assignments, and report his findings to Castillo directly. Cesar Lobo Ramirez was in charge of all financial investments, future ventures, and building a regimental arsenal. Ramirez, along with other regimental soldados, fell under received orders. Cesar Lobo Ramirez was in charge of all financial investments, future ventures, and building a regimental arsenal. Ramirez, along with all other regimental soldados, fell under, received orders from, and reported to Garcia. Isidro Chilo Huerta was assigned and/or appointed to protect the leadership. His job was to function as Castillo's personal bodyguard and to oversee all NR activity. Vincent Chente Garcia was assigned to function as a foot soldier and/or to work in hand with all other members. Salvador Littleman Castaneda was also assigned to function as a foot soldier and to assist with the enlightenment of Norteños. After their first meeting, everyone was basically ready to go to work and get things started. The entire regiment had been assigned a position, and each member knew his or her individual responsibilities and what was expected of them. His or her? What the fuck is that? I don't know about that one. Castillo continued to organize the regiment while laying low and waiting for his methamphetamine connection. His first couple of weeks of freedom were more or less laid back, uneventful, and slow-paced. He spent a lot of time with his friends, family, and children, as well as with his bodyguard, which wasn't a bright idea because due to special conditions of his parole terms, he wasn't supposed to associate with other known gang members. Out of prison for a month or so, Castillo, his right-hand man, and bodyguard got together at Rico Smiley Garcia's house on or about March 7, 1995 for their usual bi-weekly meeting, which consisted of a basic briefing, progress report, and updating each other regarding the goings-on within the regiment. All in all, not much had taken place, and Castillo was satisfied with the reports. When the meeting adjourned, Castillo was in a good mood and wanted to spend some time out of town. He and Huerta decided to go out, have a few drinks, and spend some quality time with a couple of their female friends. Huerta called his girlfriend, Melissa Galop, who called a friend of hers she wanted to introduce to Castillo. Arrangements were made to meet at the Harmony Club, a local Salinas bar on Alisal Avenue. Castillo and Huerta got into Castillo's white 1985 Ford Mustang and headed for the bar. As they pulled into the Harmony Club's parking lot, they were pulled over by one of the Salinas Police Department's Violence Suppression Units, VSU. Once the car was stopped, Castillo and Huerta were arrested for various parole violations and taken to the Monterey County Jail. A few days later, they were taken to the Santa Rita County Jail for a Morrissey hearing. At that hearing, both men were found in violation of the conditions of their parole. Castillo was given a 1-year sentence and his parole was extended. He was sent to San Quentin, where he got into a couple of physical altercations for which he received additional time. He was returned to Pelican Bay State Prison to finish his violation time. Huerta, on the other hand, was given only a 60-day violation and remained in the Santa Rita County Jail until he was eventually released and returned to Salinas. Within a few days of these arrests, per regimental procedures, Cesar Lobo Ramirez was allegedly elevated to acting commander with overall authority of the Salinas Regiment in Castillo's absence. His position was made official by the brass, NF headquarters, and/or OGB at Pelican Bay. Once his status was confirmed, Ramirez was OGB assigned and appointed to function under the guidance, authority, and/or instructions of Tex Terrible T. Hernandez, a very well-known, dangerous, and high-ranking NF leader from Salinas who was housed at Pelican Bay State Prison after receiving a life sentence for murder. very well known and dangerous. Come on, man, take some of that off. With Ramirez linked to Pelican Bay via Hernandez, all street regiments are ultimately run from prison. He began to regroup, organize, and pick up where Castillo had left off. He decided to appoint, reissue, and/or reassign his manpower to their new positions and began to recruit a few new members. Rico Smiley Garcia was assigned to the reserve commander, but had authority equal to Ramirez's. Garcia actually ran the regiment and usually had the final say. Robert Chico Rose was recruited to assist and/or function alongside Ramirez as an advisor. Vincent Chente Garcia was assigned as Ramirez's personal bodyguard. Salvador Littleman Castaneda was to continue as a foot soldier and work in hand with the Norteños. Paul Spooquillo Salcido, a very enthusiastic, structured Norteño in the process of becoming an NF member, was recruited as an NF enforcer. That dude was a straight J-Cat. Angel Fish Gutierrez was recruited as a foot soldier to work hand in hand with the Norteños. As the Salinas Regiment began to take shape, Ramirez quickly built his power, status, and reputation. He made a few changes and implemented a few new policies and procedures of his own. In doing so, however, Ramirez gained more enemies than friends. Charisma wasn't his strongest suit. Be that as it may, Ramirez was still well known, respected, and feared. Having lived in the Salinas area all of his life, he practically knew everyone in town. Although he had a great deal of friends, he also had a lot of enemies because most people thought he was a power-hungry bully who had let his authority go to his head. Ramirez was allegedly to take advantage of the younger homeboys and use the NF's name to pressure and extort the local Norteños, most of who were getting fed up with them. It was only a matter of time before someone would rebel. Patrick Chino Smith, a well-known, liked, and structured Norteño from Salinas, had an unmistakable dislike for Ramirez, his crew, and the way he was attempting to run Castillo's regiment. Smith was a real gangster and a no-nonsense kind of guy who didn't play too many games. Although he was 6'1" and weighed 220 pounds, he wasn't one to push his weight around or to take advantage of other people, nor did he allow anyone else to take advantage of him. Smith was the first in a long line of problems Ramirez was about to experience. The conflict between Ramirez and Smith came to light once Ramirez began implementing his new policies and procedures, the majority of which affected NR members not actually obligated to function on the streets. Ramirez said they were just as obligated on the outside as they were on the inside. Smith disagreed. Nevertheless, regardless of opinion, Ramirez demanded that all Norteños fall under his guidance and that each of them pay 25% of their earnings, legal or illegal, towards building a regimental bank. That's taxing right there, boy. Smith was one of many who didn't want to work for, with, or around Ramirez, and he said so. Ramirez laid down the law. He felt Smith was questioning his authority and or openly disrespecting him. Knowing that Smith disliked him, Ramirez began to target Smith with the plan of using Smith as an example to anyone who chose to rebel against him. As time went by, Ramirez decided to show Smith who was in charge of Salinas by sending a couple of his soldados, torpedoes, and or enforcers to rough him up. They did, and when Smith recovered, he immediately declared a one-man war against Ramirez and anyone in his crew. A few days later, Smith ran into Ramirez at a house party. True to his word, he challenged Ramirez to a fight, physically. Ramirez declined to get into an all-out brawl with Smith, but he did pull out a knife in hope that Smith would back off. This was a bad move. Smith, unimpressed, pulled out his own knife. Ramirez, shocked. I can see that coward right now. I know Lobo. That fool was probably looked like a deer in the headlights. Ramirez, shocked, didn't believe Smith, or anyone else for that matter, would attempt to stand him up. Ramirez panicked and was chased out of the party by Smith. Smith knew Ramirez was obligated to avenge this uncontested humiliation. As rumors of the party incident began to spread, Smith knew he had gained a very dangerous and lifelong enemy. Concerned because he knew the codes of the street, Smith knew that Ramirez must eliminate him to save face, another decision that Smith surely disagreed with. The odds against him, Smith, outnumbered, realized his life was in imminent danger and that he had to watch his step. Both men were from the same neighborhood and knew the same people. It was only a matter of time before the two eventually ran into one another. Smith, not wanting to take any chances, prepared himself and started watching his back. He carried a gun wherever he went. Not long after Smith started carrying a gun, he got together with a local youngster and made a decision of his own. He decided that since Ramirez was looking for him, his best bet was to look for Ramirez. If he ran into Ramirez, he'd be ready. At the very least, he wouldn't be caught totally off guard. One day while driving around in the youngster's van, Smith and the youngster were spotted by a Salinas police officer, pulled over and detained. The gun was found during the search of the van, and both were arrested. On the way to the police station, Smith told the youngster that he was looking at doing a lot of time and that he should prove he was a true homeboy and take the rap for the gun. The youngster, who wanted to be considered one of the fellas and act like a tough guy to impress Smith, decided he would, in fact, take the blame. Once at the Monterey County Jail, the youngster kept his word and attempted to take all responsibility for the weapon. He told the arresting officers that the gun was his and that Smith didn't know anything about it being in the vehicle. This was a likely yet unbelievable story since the gun was found under the passenger seat where Smith was sitting. During a private conversation, the suspicious detectives determined that he was lying. Since he didn't have a bad record, it seemed to them he was protecting Smith. The youngster didn't even know what type of gun was found. Using a divide and conquer technique, Smith and the youngster were separated for further questioning. After separating the two, detectives continued to interrogate the youngster. They explained the severity of the charges and let him know he would face a substantial prison sentence if he didn't tell the truth. The youngster decided to cooperate and admitted the gun belonged to Smith. He was released from custody. As for Smith, his arrest was suspiciously convenient for Ramirez. Some of the older homeboys alleged that Ramirez himself might have made an anonymous phone call to the Salinas Police Department in order to get Smith out of his way. Smith was eventually tried, convicted, and sentenced to serve 65 years in a California state prison. With Smith out of the way, no one else questioned Ramirez's authority. Ramirez remained acting commander in Castillo's absence.